Hey guys, OJ Albine here, bringing you guys another Twitter discussion video. Today, we're going to be going over a quick one. Not as many replies as our favorite Pokemon, but a little bit more of a nuanced question. And not even a nuanced question, just a little bit more thoughts goes behind it. Obviously, we all have our favorite Pokemon that we've used in Draft League, right? But I think the next important thing to ask is, what is our favorite core to use? What is our favorite group of Pokemon, one or from 2 to 3 to 4, whatever it might be? Using them together, what have we found the most success with? What have we had the most fun with? Whatever it may be. Whether it be in Generation 6, 7, 8, or 9 in Draft League. That's going to be today's question. I'm going to be looking at your guys' favorite cores and kind of talking about it a little bit. So if you guys do enjoy today's video, be sure to drop a like on it, as well as subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 5,000 subs by the end of the year, and I would really appreciate it. Plenty of Draft League content coming up on the channel. More Draft League content, more unique Draft League content than you'll find anywhere else, and I'm confident in saying that. But yeah, with that being said, we can jump into it, and I want to start off with my favorite cores in general. Now, for those of you who don't know, I started playing Draft in Generation 7, late 2017, so wow, that's a long time. Late 2017 is when I started playing, right? So back then, that was Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and one of the most tried and true cores of that generation, and still one of my favorite to this day. If I ever go back and play a Generation 7, league, is Tapu Koko plus Mega Medicham or Mega Gallade. They both really love the momentum that Koko grabs them. Obviously, Koko is probably the best mon in Generation 7, so that helps with the core being great. But Koko loves the offensive fighting with it. They typically break down each other's checks really well. Koko grabs great momentum for them. And something in particular with Medi that I really like is one of the stereotypical checks to something like Mega Medicham that you're going to see is like a physically defensive Slowbro. Boosting that Thunder Punch in the terrain makes it an absolute nuke of a 2-hit KO. That thing cannot check it anymore if you do catch it on that switch in. So there's some fun offensive synergy, and really it's just fast facilitator plus strong fighting type breaker, which is always fun. You'd be hard pressed to get Koko Gallade Newsome nowadays, but Koko Medi is definitely a lot more, plausible and, viable to get. Alright, starting up, we have A12 here, and of course, would it be A12 if both cores weren't Diggersby cores? We have Diggersby plus Greninja offensively, and then Diggersby plus Galarian Slowking defensively. Slowking does cover Diggersby pretty well defensively. I don't know what Diggersby really covers defensively at all. I have run, Assault Vest Diggersbys before in the past, just to kind of, sponge hit some special attackers that, were a little bit annoying. Maybe, I was playing against a really strong Electric that had coverage. But for the most part, Diggersby's known for his offenses, and I could definitely see it being great with Gren, right? They both pressure grasses really well, which is a ground resist, so that really helps out Diggersby. And then, most importantly, is the spikes, right? I think that Gren lays up great spikes for Diggersby. It's a Pokemon that really appreciates being able to show strong, huge power boosted, normal, and a ground type attacks, and those quick attacks are going to pick off weakened threats a lot easier, so definitely a really good core, or a really cool combo there, and a little bit more unconventional. You're not usually going to see Diggersby in these answers, so shout out to A12. Then we have Aaron 12. I guess another A12, right? My bread and butter core is Celesteela plus Florges plus Mega Sceptile. I've drafted this core 3 times, and all 3 times it's performed amazingly. Celesteela plus Mega Sceptile always finishing first and second kill leaders for my team, and Florges just sponging hits all day. Now, I can't lie, I'm a big Florges hater. I think that mon is terrible. Very bad Pokemon. However, I do see the vision here, right? Selly really appreciates Mega Sceptile absorbing those electric type attacks, and really other than that, I think the only thing that you don't cover with this core is going to be strong offensive fires, can kind of smoke through it, but I like the offensive application of Selly plus Mega Sceptile. Florges is able to keep both healthy, especially Celesteela, with big wishes into it, and especially if it's past gens, which it kind of has to be if it's Mega Sceptile or Nat Dex, you can heal Bell off status off it, which is always really nice. And find switching to that Mega Sceptile a little bit easier, which is always really cool. So I think it's definitely another interesting one. Definitely a really cool one. But yeah. Next up, we have Urshifu plus Gengar or any Ghost. Rah! From Tony. I do love Gengar. I have won championships with this core. I think it's very strong, especially in Generation 8. I don't know if it's necessarily that I think it's Urshifu plus a Ghost is great. I think it's Urshifu plus a strong Poison is great. And I think the Ghost being, Gengar being a Ghost is another, added benefit to this core, right? Urshifu really struggles with Fairies. That's actually about it. It's the only thing that switches into Urshifu. If we can find a U-turn, get a free switch into Gengar, which Gengar loves free switching, and we can throw off a strong Specs attack, we're going to put ourselves in a good position. We're going to put ourselves in a really good position. In Darks and Normals that Gengar doesn't appreciate, something like Urshifu is going to come in and absolutely smoke through them. So Yeah, definitely great. King L5, one of the greatest draft league players of our generation. He has to tell us Mega Lopunny plus Bombardier and Choice Scarf Haxers. Absolute innovation. Absolute innovation. So big from L5. You know, I can't even explain it. The level that this core goes to is pretty insane. I've actually never seen Bombardier drafted outside of the first draft of Sword and Shield. I played one and it died in like the first couple turns, and I've never played a Bombardier since, so I actually don't know what that guy does at all. Next up, we have Lux, another very good player. You think Coco, Kieran Black, my beloved. Another great core. Again, Kieran Black is a Pokemon that loves free switch-ins. And it loves free switch-ins on ground types and grass types, which are going to check Coco very often. We're going to get a free U-turn into KB, and we're just going to kill something. That's how KB works, right? So, definitely a really strong core. Very hard to get, but really strong core. I definitely love Coco, Kieran Black. I think that's actually the thumbnail for this one. Next up, we have Zazo, Iron Flash Gaming here, saying Necro and Zapdos in Sword and Shield. Necro in Sword and Shield is such an incredibly fun Pokemon. That plus Zapdos. Zapdos another great mon. Zapdos is going to form as a great pivot for something like Necro. Necro is very versatile. It can function as a solid defensive staple alongside Zapdos, or you can come in and be Meteor Beam, be Dragon Dance, whatever it might be, and be really strong. Next up, we have Keeg with the greatest draft league core of all time. Yard Crest. Did you know that in the sun, Moonlight gives you 75% of recovery? 75%. That's big. That's massive, in fact. Really big. Now, Keegan drafted this in the ORAS Cup because he thought it'd be funny and he really wanted to use these guys. This is not an objectively great core. It's not bad. I wouldn't say like this is like, you know, dog shit drafting, but we were hyping it up a little bit during the tournament. Keegan made it really far. I think he made top 64 with it, so big shout out to that. I'm so excited for the Yard Crest movie. Next up we have Zeke here saying, I don't know if this is a core per se, but it's the backbone of a lot of drafts I've had, if you will. Zero Aura plus Scizor plus Lando T. Timeless and super well put together. Scizor can be Mega if you want. You pair this up with insert special demon here, and you're cooking with some dank offense. Yeah, I mean, the Mons cover each other offensively and defensively really well. Scizor Lando T is a core that's always been very solid, right? Scizor being a great ice resist for something like Lando. Zero Aura is great for really breaking down waters, which this team doesn't appreciate. Lando, you turning into Scizor on like grasses and things that are in different ground resists. Scizor is going to be able to maintain great momentum. This plus Hazards especially seems really nice. This like if you can get a strong spiker, this momentum core is great, especially as Zero Aura and Scizor and Lando are all knocking off you know, heavy duty boots and leftovers and things like that. You're just gonna whittle everything down. Next up, we have TTM, the Token Minorities here, saying Coco plus Zard offensively, Zard with an X. Same idea as your two, but having Zard as a remarkable, but Zard has a remarkable defensive profile as well as boosting / breaking. Plus fills out most of the Fairy Steel Dragon core. Defensively, it has to be Swampert plus Anito. Two excellent grounds that don't share weaknesses and fill unique roles. Yes, I love both of these. Coco's art is also another. I mean, I don't know if you guys are catching on to a trend, but Coco's really good. as a, you know, as a Pokemon in Usum. It's a great facilitator of so many different strong mons and so many strong megas, to be honest. But I do love Zard defensively. I think that's a really big aspect of it, right? Especially if we can keep Hazards off the field. And even then, we're only taking 25%. Fire Dragon is a great typing offensively and defensively, and we can find a ton of setup opportunities and be like fat physically, or especially defensive Dragon Dance variants, and still win the game while being great defensively. Swampert plus Nito is cool, and I think this is a cool aspect of kind of letting people know, like, hey, you can have a great defensive core of Pokemon that are two similar types. We have to draft for weaknesses and, like, you know, things that we're trying to cover, opposed to, you know, typings. You think double ground, that's not good. They're both ground types, but he's right. They don't share any weaknesses at all, and they do different things. Especially if you're like a Nido King and you're a little more offensive, you have more defensive water, especially in new gens with like pert flip turning and things like that. Next up, we have Large here saying, I love double Dragon Cores. Nothing is more fun than having a Dragapult plus Latios spam their stats until the Fairy type drops, and then they basically nuke everything. Yeah, so this is like an overload principle, right? We have Pokemon that have similar checks that they can kind of beat down in tandem together. So if my Dragapult comes in and his choice specs, the Spadef Fairy comes in, I click Shadow Ball, I do, you know, 35-40%, I click Shadow Ball again, they Moonblast me, I keep them low, or trade for them 1v1, then my Latios just smokes with Dracos for the rest of the game, right? And vice versa. It can happen, obviously. So I definitely I definitely like that. Whenever I'm panicked for whenever I'm panicked in round 9 or game 9, I don't know. For a defensive background, I found myself just drafting Ursaring plus Overqwil to do wonders. Ursaring saw a big come up this gen, obviously being able to run Eviolite. That thing becomes ungodly fat and a great anti-meta pick to a lot of the top end special attackers. It could be so fat, whether it be mons like Volk, whether if you're legal out Spectre, it's a great Spectre check as well. It's a great Pult check. 10 different things. It also doesn't care about being burned because of Guts, which is big into checking ghosts. And then Overqwil is a great spiker. Can be pretty offensive too. I think SD Overqwil sets are super slept on right now. It doesn't have to be in a more, you know, defensive role all the time, like, and it doesn't have to be on rain to be offensive, you know what I mean? Like, we can totally SD up and do a ton of damage with Intim, maybe even Scale Shot and get a speed boost or something. Next up, we have Trexo here saying Iron Bundle plus Hands, and the frog's kind of schmooving a little bit. Bundle plus Hands is definitely going to be really strong. Hands grabs great slow momentum into Bundle. Bundle can flip turn out on checks into something like Hands, into Ice Resist, into Water Resist, and then Hands comes in and clicks a button, which is also really nice. Forms a really solid momentum core. Bundle's going to be kind of forced into a little bit more of a boots variation with this core, I think, but I don't think that's a bad thing, right? I'm never, like, upset that my Pokemon has to hold the best item in the game, right? So, definitely solid. Next up, we have Dashing here saying offensively, Urshifu single strike with a Fairy Killer like G-King or Goldango. Walking Awake is also impossible to switch into in the sun. Defensively, play my WPF Season 2 core of Torn T, Glowking, Alamola, and Manchow. Quadruple regen, just getting momentum and getting HP on every injury. Yeah, so we already kind of talked about Urshifu plus Fairy Killer. I didn't mention G-King. It's a little bit more of a defensive kind of spin on that, but Goldango is definitely a big one. I actually really like Goldango with Urshifu. I've just used Goldango for the first time ever in my DPL game last week, and just like in mocks, being able to guarantee hazards never go away is freaking huge, especially with something like Urshifu. So that's definitely cool. And I guess we could talk about regen cores, right? If you think back, especially like in Generation 8, I felt like the predominant best playstyle that you could play was like regen spam balance. And it was often with Pokemon like this, Torn T, Glowking, Mienshao, and then instead of Aloe, you would typically have like, you know, Tangrowth, you would, like, Aloe might be on the team somewhere or something like that, but Aldino, something like that. But for the most part, I mean, it's really hard to deal with teams like this, especially with guys like Torn T, Mienshao, Aloe, and G-King all getting momentum. They all just flip turn, U-turn, or Chilly Reception out and kind of get yourself advantageous spots. We get up hazards, maybe that Torn T gets up T-spikes or something of the sorts, and we're really whittling the town, so definitely really solid. Next up, we have Lars once again here saying, I really like Audino plus Tapu Fini, since Fini covers Audino's weaknesses perfectly. Yeah, I mean, it does. Well, the weakness is weakness. It's fighting, right? It's the only weakness that normal has. But obviously, that's going to be valuable in the sense that, you know, Fini can switch in pretty well on anything that's going to threaten Audino. Plus, I think the terrain is a big aspect, right? Typically, we're trying to force Audino to either burn heal bells or, you know, whittle it down with Toxic if it doesn't have Heal Bell, right? In past gens, and this is a past gen example. So the fact that we have terrain to keep both of them safe from Toxics and burns and paras and things of the sort is always going to be really clutch, so definitely really cool core. Audino passes really good wishes into Fini, and they're really annoying. Next up, we have Liv here saying, my favorite core has got to be Koko plus Offensive Dragon. My personal go-to is Latios, or if lucky, Garchomp and Zygarde. I mean, Koko is just the star of the show today, man. I mean, we've seen other Offensive Dragon examples. We saw just Garchomp, Zygarde right here. We've seen Latios. We've seen Zard. We've seen Kyurem Black. And then fighting types, like I said earlier, and like Gallade and Medi. So definitely a really good one. Next up, we have Sandy Simmons here. Absolutely gross core I've gotten that I loved. Glamora, Goldango, and an offensive sweeper. Mine was Moon. I mean, yeah, again, it's the idea of Goldango just blocking any kind of hazard removal if you're building and playing correctly. As long as you're not absolutely smoked by the remover, which there's not a lot that can do it. And even then, if we're playing draft, we can be resist berries, we can be balloons, we can do things like that. You're going to be in a good spot. Next up, we have Confused here saying, I'm a sucker for that Gen 8 Pult Mandy Lele core. For VGC draft news, I love Togekiss plus Mega Luke. Both support and enable each other very well. I can't speak too much on Usum VGC draft, as I know nothing about it. However, as for Pult Mandy Lele, I think that's really cool. Pult U-turning, Mandy U-turning, Lele coming in and clicking a button. I mean, Lele is a really strong breaker in Generation 8 draft. Obviously a lot weaker than it was in Gen 7, but it was banned in Gen 7, so now we could use it in Gen 8, right? But a really strong Pokemon that often found tough times getting in. So if we're getting a free switch in, because our Pult and our Mandibuzz are U-turning, and we're getting that opportunity to click a Spec Psychic or Psyshock or Moonblast against a defensive Pokemon that came in on them, we're going to be in a good spot. Outside of like the steals that might want to come in, but we obviously have our whole team around us, so we can kind of, you know, adjust accordingly from there. Next up, we have Sark Techie here saying Bulu-Tran, Lando / Rotom Wash. Bulu-Tran is like kind of like the core I think of first, not in the sense that I like it, because I'll be honest, I actually really don't like it. I think Blue is terrible. I love Heatran. I think you draft Rillatran if you're gonna, you know, go that route. But I remember when I first started watching and playing draft in Usum, I think it was A-Drive drafted Bulu-Tran in WBE, and obviously that's way before Rillaboom existed. And I remember my mind being blown, man, being like, oh my gosh, the terrain, the recovery, he has Grass on the Heatran for a crazy strong Solar Beam, weakened Earthquakes, oh my beautiful core. Realistically, I'm not a big Blue fan, but this is like, it's like the cookie cutter example for like a draft league core. Two Pokemon that complement each other really well. And it's crazy because the second one, Lando Rotom Wash, is actually a core that is like very well known and very simple, but is tried and true, incredible. The Pokemon cover each other perfectly defensively, pretty much. We're just going to U-turn around forever, maintain momentum. We're gonna get up rocks, we're gonna spread Willows and Toxics and Thunder Waves, and we're just gonna be annoying. We're gonna get into our offensive breakers. It's a great defensive core, even in Generation 9 to this day. Great core. Next up, we have Beast Neymar here saying Mega DNC plus Scizor. Yeah, definitely a really solid core. They cover each other, again, pretty well defensively, outside of like a couple neutralities that are a little scary. But they're also really good together offensively. They really do appreciate each other a ton. DNC is going to smoke through everything that's Super Ball Scizor, which is great. So we U-turn, get into DNC, go off Power Gem or Diamond Storm. Next up, we have Devin here saying in Usum it was offensively or defensively Tornti and Mew. The speed tier niches these two Pokemon filled on their own. Let me have so much flexibility in the rest of my teams at the time. Must have picked both at least 15 times. Steela plus Hydreigon or Latios also filled a lot of boxes. I mean, Tornti and Mew are going to be two Pokemon that are very versatile. I don't know if I would consider them a core other than the fact that they're both good. They don't really cover each other defensively, but they both do cover niches, especially in the sense of Mew. Like being your Hazard Bomb, being your Momentum Grabber, being your setup win con, being your defensive staple. And Torn just U-turning around forever, getting into the rest of the team, always going to be good monts. Next up, we have Lolo here saying the core that I had the most fun playing with was Annihilate plus Hisuian Samurai. Those spikes pair with a mon that not only blocks Rapid Spin, but also punches Defog plus Rage Hiss. It is so good. 100%. Again, we want to punish our opponent for taking the extra turn to remove. If they want to Rapid Spin, we want to block it. If they want to Defog, we want to punish it. We already talked about Goldango. Goldango Hisuian Samurai is a really fun core that I've seen people use. But Annihilate Hisuian Samurai, it's a very similar aspect, right? You have to be careful with Annihilate coming in on Defog because that guy is weak to flying. And a lot of Defoggers are flying types, so you just gotta be careful. Next up, we have Jasper here saying, my favorite offensive core is probably Spectre and Galarian Zapdos. Mid-semis in a small YouTube league with them. They complement each other so well. I mean, yeah, it's the tried and true core of Spectre plus offensive fighting, right? They're always going to do well together. And plus, the things that are going to check things like Galarian Zapdos are going to be able to U-turn into Spectre, gain a little bit of momentum, and be a little bit stronger. I realize I never liked this tweet. I'm sorry. I'm going to proverbial like this is tweeted like 2 weeks ago, so I'm not gonna give you a random notification, but this is a good core. I would have liked this tweet if I didn't forget. Next up, we have Special K here saying two offensive cores I don't think I'll ever be able to replicate again is Coco plus Valiant or Kyurem Black and Mega Alakazam. Those are nasty. Defensively goes to Core/Pex plus Powdon. Yeah, I think you were drafting by yourself. Coco Val and Kyurem Mega Alakazam. One, you're playing in leagues that allow Kyurem Black, Mega Alakazam. It depends on the generation, I guess. But even then, I mean, you're playing in a league that allows Mega Alakazam. And Coco Valiant seems absolutely disgusting. Giving that guy an automatic booster energy all the time, plus being able to hold an item. Sheesh. That is something. And then we have Zeth here saying, only in my second draft right now, but an unexpected combo that's been doing some great work for me is Mienshao / Iron Crown. Both are being some of my favorite monsters I've ever drafted now. I mean, yeah, I mean, 2 leaks. It's a pretty fun core. Me and Joe are going to grab great U-turns. It's going to break down the darks, the steals that Crown doesn't appreciate. I believe Crown also gets Volt Switch. The biggest thing is I wish Crown got rocks like Cobalion, and it'd be great. But unfortunately it doesn't. But it definitely seems cool. And plus Crown with like Terra seems like a really fun mon. Kind of seems like it's like a booster Mickey ice setup and win kind of mon, but definitely really fun for sure. So definitely really solid. But yeah, that's going to be the course for today's video. Like I said, not super long. We're cutting it on about 20 minutes. So, pretty short one. I hope you guys enjoyed. Starting later this week / next week, we'll also be doing some tier lists that'll go up on the channel. We're going to go through each of the generations and rank the Pokemon based on how good they are in Draft League. I've did something similar with typings before, but we're going to look at them in a vacuum of a generation now, which will be fun. So, yeah, again, I appreciate y'all watching, hanging out with me today. I hope y'all have a great rest of your Wednesday, and have a good one. Later.